Hello, football fans. Welcome into a new edition of BVM Sports Chalk Talk. I'm Mike Cianciolo, joined alongside Scott Procter and Matt Morris. Week 1 of the NFL regular season has come and gone, and while we're all excited for more action from the gridiron, gotta take a look at some major injuries that occurred over the weekend. On Thursday Night Football, Cowboys wide receiver Michael Gallup sustained a calf strain against the Buccaneers. Dallas will be without their fourth-year wideout for 3 to 5 weeks. Jeff Okudah, the number 3 overall pick in the 2020 draft and starting cornerback for the Detroit Lions, is out for the season after suffering a ruptured left Achilles tendon against the 49ers. Speaking of that game, San Francisco's starting running back Raheem Mostert was diagnosed with chipped cartilage in his knee and has elected to have season-ending surgery to repair that knee. Ryan Fitzpatrick was looking to start his 17th season in the league off differently, making his debut for the Washington football team. The veteran QB has been placed on IR and is expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a right hip injury sustained against the Chargers. In the AFC, the Jets will be without starting left tackle Mekhi Becton 4 to 6 weeks with a dislocated right kneecap, a big blow to rookie quarterback Zach Wilson's blind side. The Broncos can anticipate sophomore wide receiver Jerry Jeudy to miss at least 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain after getting rolled up awkwardly against the Giants on Sunday. Some notable names here and more that will miss significant time around the NFL. Scott, which week 1 injury do you think is the most impactful?
For sure, there's a handful, and you hate to see injuries every single week in the sport of football, any sport for that matter. But the one I'm looking at is as impactful, to say the least, is Mekhi Becton in the New York Jets. It might not be an injury you heard much about, on Sunday and the days following, but this loss, Mekhi Becton to the left side of that New York Jets offensive line, is a massive blow. Listen, Becton was the first round pick for the Jets last year, and one of only a couple really bright spots during their abysmal 2020 season. Number 2 overall pick, Zach Wilson, who Mike alluded to just a little bit ago, was sacked 6 times and hit 10 times in his NFL debut on Sunday in Carolina. And that could really just become the norm without the Jets' best offensive lineman and Wilson's blindside protection out there to help him out. You also can't discount, Becton's impact in the run game, which means for fantasy owners, I wouldn't trust any New York Jets running back. Tevin Coleman, Michael Carter, stay away. Becton avoided a major knee injury and will be back within a month or two, but he's going to be sorely missed on an offense that needs all the help it can get, especially Zach Wilson, who struggled a bit in that first half in his opener, but came alive in the second, hitting Corey Davis for a couple of touchdowns. But again, the loss of Mekhi Becton, loss of your blindside protection is going to hurt. It's not going to help Wilson's acclimation to the league. So that's one situation, one injury I'm going to be paying attention to, see how the Jets, respond. What are you thinking, Matt?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Scott. And for me, I looked at most impactful, and I kind of looked at who would be stepping up in that role and filling in for whoever was injured. And obviously, with a lot of these situations, you can't really look at it and think that the next man up is going to be better or have a more powerful impact than the guy that obviously was injured. Becton's a great example. When you lose a left tackle, you're not able to replace him with a very good left tackle.
Right.
But with the Ryan Fitzpatrick injury out in Washington, I think it's kind of interesting because Taylor Heinicke, to me, seems like a viable option at quarterback. And I was very impressed with what he was able to do when he came into the game against the Chargers, going 11 of 15 for 122 yards and a touchdown. He did his part in trying to give the football team the best chance to win that game. And you could even argue that with if you take away an Antonio Gibson fumble early in the fourth quarter, right in the Charger, right in their own 10-yard line, there's a good chance the football team comes away 1-0 after that game. And not only that, but he has the ability to scramble better than Fitzpatrick. He's younger. He seemed to learn from any mistakes he had when he was in Carolina as far as turning the ball over. He made smart passes. He got Terry McLaurin more into the game than Fitzpatrick was. Granted, it wasn't a lot of time, but fantasy football fans, you'll be happy about that. I think Terry McLaurin will bounce back from a lackluster first game. And also, he has experience with this team and this offense. He did fairly well against the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year in the first round of the playoffs. 26 of 44 for 306 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception, which is pretty impressive for a guy who was making his first start in the postseason against a team that would end up winning the Super Bowl. So I think that with this upcoming game against the Giants, with an important game against the Bills after that, and with a team that has the weapons and the defense to win a very, poor division. Taylor Heineke stepping in early and giving this team some light and some energy is going to be huge. And so I expect him to play well for Washington. I think Washington can beat the Giants, and he has the team's support as well. So I think that this, as far as impactful, is going to make a huge impact on the football team. And I expect Heineke to step up and do even better than maybe what Fitzpatrick was going to be able to do.
Yeah, man, this is a super interesting situation. Because again, anytime you lose your starting quarterback, it's typically not a good situation. But the Washington football team might be as well set up as anybody in the league as far as their backup situation. And remind you, Washington just signed Tyler Heineke to a new two-year deal this offseason, just a few months ago. So obviously they're invested. They believe in this kid. And I'm glad you mentioned, his playoff debut last season against the reigning defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You mentioned he threw for 300 yards. Tyler Heineke was also the Washington's leading rusher in that game. He averaged 70 yards to carry, 46 yards on the ground, added a touchdown on the ground. So, yes, Heineke brings much more juice, with his legs than, Fitzpatrick does. And again, he's already built a rapport with that receiving core with Terry McLaurin. So, again, like you mentioned, Matt, this might not be the worst possible scenario for Washington moving forward, especially when they have a top five-ish defense. They have reputable, skill weapons offensively. So, I'm expecting Taylor Heineke to, step in and continue to play well and, hopefully, push this Washington team forward in a somewhat tough NFC East division.
Somewhat is being nice.
Let's talk about the status of the NFC East. What does Heineke at under center as opposed to Fitzpatrick mean to Washington's chance at potentially trying to win the NFC East?
Well, first of all, I think it allows them to be way more mobile. And we've seen a move in the NFL to have better, more mobile quarterbacks. And you saw it plenty of times. The Chargers had a great pass rush, and they would get to Heineke, and he was able to get out and also still have some nice passes out of the pocket as he scrambled. There was one where it was basically a shovel pass that he just tossed right at the line of scrimmage. It was really impressive. Or he could break out and be a runner and get you that first down, scramble for those. And I think it also allows this Washington football team to use their weapons correctly, build the rapport with Terry McLaurin, have Antonio Gibson run the ball really well, which was something that you didn't see last year. And it just makes them more dangerous on offense as a whole.
Honestly, I think you hit the nail right on the head, Matt. But really what this comes down to is Taylor Heineke is another weapon offensively for Washington to use at their disposal. Again, we already mentioned this guy can use his legs. And especially, I love Antonio Gibson. I think he's one of the most promising young backs in the league. But he has a fumbling problem. He saw it in his rookie year. He already fumbled week one in a big spot that literally led a couple plays later to a Los Angeles Chargers score. So, having another weapon back in that backfield who can use his legs, extend the pocket, extend plays, and, hopefully get the ball to Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin, those guys. I think it's going to bode well. I don't think this is going to be an awful situation for Washington.
As a Terry McLaurin owner in 2 fantasy football leagues, I really hope that he is QB proof and that Tyler finds Terry pretty hopefully that connection can get established. Scott, I liked your choice with Mekhi Becton. That's definitely a huge loss to that Jets offense, especially considering Zach Wilson's still getting his feet wet. He's only 1 week,
right.
1 week into his NFL career and already down his left tackle. But one person I didn't want us to overlook, the loss of Mostert in San Francisco. Elijah Mitchell had a very nice game filling in as the backup. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how that Niners backfield shakes up and performs, though, once Trey Sermon, the higher rated rookie on that team, becomes active and gets involved with the 49ers. That'll do it for this edition. For Chalk Talk, for Scott Procter and Matt Morris, I'm Mike Cianciolo. We'll see you next time.